Interesting piece by Zed Jelani in Alternet today. It's titled, "Our TV Programming is All About Rich People's Dreams." I've talked about this before, but it's worth reprising. There was a study done with squirrels back, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I quoted it in one of my books. I'm pretty sure it's in What Would Jefferson Do, but it's in one of the books that I wrote back a decade or more ago. And the study was fascinating. Squirrels build nests. If you've lived in the North, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You walk around in the winter when the trees are all leafless, and you see these just giant wad of leaves, right? Well, that's a squirrel's nest. And the squirrels build nests in the trees and, give birth to the young there. And the squirrels' nests all tend to be about the same size. Squirrels are mammals. They share a brain structure very similar to ours and an emotional system very similar to ours. We are mammals. So the question was, what happens if we start messing with the size of the squirrels' nests? So what they did is they took a couple of squirrels' nests in one particular neighborhood and made them bigger by about 20%. And what they discovered was that the other squirrel nests within, a mile or two of this place where they had modified the squirrel's nest, they all started making their nests bigger. Right? It was like, keeping up with the Joneses or the Smiths or whatever, the next door neighbors. So there's this, and this is like wired into our limbic brain, apparently, if it's something we share with squirrels. And what Zed is pointing out is that up until basically the Reagan era, basically up until 1980, our sitcoms, our comedy shows on television, showed average working people in average working environments. All the way back to the Jackie Gleason show, The Honeymooners, back in the 1950s. Fast forward to all the programs, virtually all the programs that Norman Lear created. Just brilliant stuff. All in the Family and all these other shows. Archie Bunker lived in a normal house. Right? He didn't live in a mansion. And this is All in the Family was from 1971 to 79. They were in Queens. The show featured debates, as Zed writes, about gun control, gay rights, segregation, women's liberation, and other hot-button topics. And, All in the Family was an absolute act of genius. I saw Norman Lear and his wife Lynn on Saturday in Los Angeles. He has got to be one of the smartest people I know. It's just, and with regard to, creating television programming, just an absolute genius. It spun off Maude, it spun off Good Times. They were all middle-class families. And then came Reaganism, and greed is good. And what did we start watching? Dynasty. In fact, here, this is what Zed Jelani says. The 1980s saw Ronald Reagan capture control of the political system, greatly enhancing the power of the super rich, while setting into motion a trend of income inequality that continues today. This power grab by the rich was mirrored in American sitcoms. Programming like Dallas and Dynasty became the most watched shows on television. And, of course, these are about one-percenters. So what happens to us squirrels? Right? We're looking at our house going, when we were watching All in the Family, we'd look at our house and go, hey, Archie Bunker's house looks just like my house for the middle class or the working class of America. But Dynasty and Dallas, whoa, my house doesn't look like that. I guess I need to get rich. I need to work more hours. I need to start playing the lottery. And then Zed Jelani gets into the Cosby Show, which I thought was interesting, particularly given how Bill Cosby has been in the press so much recently. He points to one iconic scene where the protagonist, Cliff Huxtable, is explaining to his son Theo the value of working hard in school. And Theo says he wants to just drive a bus, be a regular worker, like Jackie Gleason was in The Honeymooners. He doesn't say that, but and his dad, who is a doctor And his mother is a banker, as I recall, or something. A lawyer. That's right. She was a lawyer. This is a show that I have I can only tell you about it in the third person because I have never seen the Cosby Show. From 1978 until 2001, Louise and I did not have a television. We raised our kids without TV, and so I've got this cultural hole. It's when I saw Norman this weekend, he made a reference to Mary Hartman, and I didn't say it because it would have sounded disrespectful, but I've never seen that show either. Although I used to get a lot of flack about it because apparently her husband's name was Tom. But in any case, or maybe he was played by a guy named Tom. I don't know. But anyhow, the point that Zed makes about the Cosby Show is he said 3 decades. He says, you got to get good grades to go to college. And he said, but it ignores the facts of the societal situation many young people find themselves in. Class and racism are rarely mentioned on the show. 3 decades after that episode aired, black college graduates and white high school dropouts. Just consider this for a moment. Black college graduates and white high school dropouts have the same chance of getting a job. This is how bad it is for African Americans. So Zed says, despite its important role in elevating the status of black Americans in American TV culture, the show's ultimate message was to ignore the powerful social forces harming working people, minorities, and women. I mean, you never, in the Cosby Show, apparently, as I saying, speaking as somebody who's never seen the show, but apparently nobody ever got pulled over by the police, nobody ever got profiled, nobody ever, et cetera. And then Zed says, and then we got into Seinfeld world, and in Seinfeld, it's like, people living in spacious apartments in New York City. Now, it looks kind of average, and Friends and Sex and the City, and it wasn't quite the royal lifestyle of Dynasty in Dallas, but it was people who were, sufficiently affluent that they didn't have to spend a lot of time working, and they could spend a lot of time hanging out and going to fancy restaurants and whatnot. And more and more. He talks about Mad Men and House of Cards and whatnot. More and more we're seeing, and we have been seeing steadily since the 1980s, we've stopped programming about and to regular people and instead have been programming about rich people or, the if not the top 1%, at least the top 20% is pretty much what has shown up on television since the 80s. Now, it could be that this just mirrors the executives themselves and the stars themselves who are making a whole lot more money now than back in the 70s and the 60s when people on TV were paid far, far less than they are now, from the executives all the way down. Or it could just be the zeitgeist of the times. But where are the programs for the middle class? Where are the programs that, maybe Orange is the New Black? Show about prison, but it's a fascinating commentary on our social constructs, and as I said, I've gone off on this a number of times. I've written about it. The question, I guess, in my mind is which drives which. Does television drive our culture? Is it making us all frantic to keep up with the family on TV, or does our culture drive television? I suspect there's a little bit of both. In fact, I'm quite sure that there's a little bit of it. Anyhow, 15 minutes past the hour. We'll be back.